How did an iconic comedian go from refueling fighter jets to fronting a funk band? Legendary performer Sinbad has had an eclectic career, both in and out of comedy. You might not think it from looking at him, but in his younger days, Sinbad was an extremely talented basketball player. He revealed to Vlad TV that he was heavily recruited out of high school and was offered scholarships by something like 70 college programs. Among those pursuing him was the Air Force Academy, where the coach was a young go-getter by the name of Greg Popovich, who would famously go on to a legendary NBA career littered with Coach of the Year titles and championship rings. Sinbad ultimately settled on the University of Colorado at Denver, where he posted respectable stats over a 3-year career. Unfortunately, any pro aspirations he might have had were derailed by a knee injury, and a potential contract with a pro team in London fell through, according to Morning Call. A bit disillusioned with the whole experience, Sinbad dropped out of college and decided to pursue a wildly different career path, although probably not the one you know him for. That would come later. Strangely enough, Sinbad did indeed end up in the Air Force, not as a student, but as an airman. The future comedian served as a boom operator, also known as an in-flight refueling specialist, aboard a KC-135 Stratotanker. It was while stationed at a refueling wing in Wichita, Kansas, that Sinbad first started dipping his toes into the waters of comedy, heading downtown to perform in local clubs during downtime and entering an Air Force talent show in 1981. In an interview with Royal Air Force Mildenhall, Sinbad fondly remembered his time in the military and credited his Air Force stint with helping him to achieve his dreams. He did, however, only narrowly avoid a dishonorable discharge. According to CBS Austin, he incurred a number of infractions, including going AWOL and, for the last straw, parking his car facing the wrong direction. It seemed that, much like basketball, a lifelong military career was not in the cards. Fortunately for Sinbad, he had a talent or two outside of playing ball and refueling fighter jets. Way before American Idol and America's Got Talent, there was Star Search. Hosted by the legendary Ed McMahon, the show began its run in 1983, giving unknowns the chance to prove their mettle in a number of categories, including singing, dancing, and comedy. During the show's inaugural season, Sinbad nearly won it all in the comedy category, coming in second place to John Kassir. Sinbad did manage to conquer a number of other talented competitors on the show. He beat out Dennis Miller, who humorously alluded to his loss in the middle of his short, brutal run as the host of his own talk show in 1997, saying, "I haven't seen judgment this bad since I lost to Sinbad on Star Search." As noted by The Wrap, Sinbad's near triumph led to his casting in a short-lived sitcom centered on the legendary comedian Red Fox. And when that show bit the dust after just one season, a far steadier TV gig was waiting in the wings. The name Bill Cosby is likely to leave a bad taste in the mouth of anybody who has paid attention to the comedian's legal troubles over the last couple of decades or so. In the 80s, however, his reputation was very different, and in a decade filled with iconic sitcoms, The Cosby Show was at the top of the pile. It wasn't long after The Red Fox Show closed up shop that Sinbad was tapped for a single-episode guest appearance on The Cosby Show. His performance went so well that when the college-oriented spin-off A Different World came out, Sinbad landed a recurring role on the series. As it turns out, the comic may not have gotten this gig without Cosby's intervention. Speaking to his castmates on the A Different World reunion special, Sinbad remembered that he was initially hired as a comic to warm up the studio audience, a gig he landed by lying his face off to producers, telling them that he'd done the same job for other sitcoms in the past.
I never warmed up a studio audience, so I was lying. I lied to get the job.
With Sinbad's job hanging by a thread, Cosby stepped in, saying, "This man should be on TV." And so it was that Sinbad appeared in 77 episodes of A Different World as Coach Walter Oakes, raising his profile exponentially. During his stint on A Different World, Sinbad branched out into a number of different ventures, most notably HBO comedy specials. His relentlessly high-energy, non-profane style made him a good fit for a wide audience. His first special, Brain Damaged, came out in 1991, and with it, the comic established himself as a regular presence on the then relatively young medium of cable television. Throughout the 90s, Sinbad kept that presence up, starring in the 1993 special Afros and Bell Bottoms, 1996's Son of a Preacher Man, and 1998's Nothing But the Funk. In between specials, he found time to dabble in movies. He first appeared in a bit in the Saturday Night Live sketch adaptation Coneheads before landing co-starring roles in 1995's Houseguest and the 1996 Arnold Schwarzenegger holiday classic Jingle All the Way. Sinbad's stardom was well and truly on the rise, and given his sitcom roots and increasing bankability, it's no surprise that he was given a shot at solo sitcom stardom, short-lived as it was. Sinbad did indeed headline his own half-hour network comedy, but if you blinked, you might have missed it. The Sinbad Show aired for a single season on the Fox network between 1993 and 1994, and it's safe to say it was very standard fare for the time, with Sinbad portraying a fun-loving guy who gets in over his head after becoming the foster father to a couple of older kids. The series barely registered a blip on the cultural radar, but it's notable for a couple of its supporting players and guest stars. Most interestingly, a young Salma Hayek appeared as a guest in 3 episodes, at a time when she was still mainly a TV actor with only a single feature credit to her name. The show also featured veteran comic and character actor T.K. Carter in a small role, and co-starred none other than future R&B sensation Ray J as one of Sinbad's foster kids. While Sinbad would continue to pop up in small TV and film roles over the years, The Sinbad Show marked his last series regular role for nearly 2 decades. He did land a co-starring gig on the Fox comedy Rel in 2018. Unfortunately, that show also bit the dust after only 1 season. You may be aware that in the 90s, both late-night and daytime talk shows were all the rage. In 1997, legendary music producer Quincy Jones decided that he wanted a piece of that action, and so Vibe was born. Vibe was a late-night gabfest spun off from Jones's urban music magazine by the same name. Vibe was set to hit the ground running with a roster of high-profile guests popping by within its first week, including Mel Gibson, Brandy, and Shaquille O'Neal. Comic Chris Spencer, who the Los Angeles Times reports Jones had described as the next big star in comedy, was set to host. On the subject of entertainment, Jones's instincts are rarely misguided. In the case of Spencer, though, his prediction did not play out as planned. After just 11 weeks, the Times reported that Spencer had been bounced from the show, with none other than Sinbad tapped to take over his duties. Sinbad said at the time, "I'm happy to be guest hosting the show. I like the look of the show, and the band is happening."
Catch Sinbad every weeknight as the host of Vibe. Nighttime will never be the same again.
I'm so excited.
If it seems like Sinbad was a touch reluctant to accept the hosting gig full-time, it may be because of some writing that he spotted on the wall. Vibe ultimately sputtered and was cancelled after only 2 seasons. Another major craze of the 90s were boy and girl groups, and late in that decade, R&B songstresses 702 were making a name for themselves on the pop charts. According to Billboard, the group notched a number 4 single with Where My Girl's At in 1999 and contributed tunes to the soundtracks of films like the 2002 John Leguizamo crime thriller Empire and Chris Rock's bizarre 2001 comedy Pootie Tang. While the group's heyday was relatively brief, they burned pretty brightly for a few years there, and they may never have broken through if not for Sinbad. According to Gossip, Sinbad discovered the group, then going by the name Sweeter Than Sugar after a performance near Las Vegas. He then used his star power to get them on the roster at a popular Atlanta talent show where they hooked up with legendary producer Michael Bivins of Belle Biv DeVoe fame. Bivins became their manager and suggested their new moniker. The rest, as they say, is history. In 2009, Sinbad was no longer flying quite so high with the TV and film roles, and his comedy special run was largely in the rearview mirror. That year, the St. Louis American reported that the comedian owed an eye-watering $8 million to the IRS, a circumstance which had forced him to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy. In that filing, he claimed anywhere from $10 million to $50 million in liabilities against a measly $50,000 in assets. The comic was still embroiled in tax difficulties in May 2013 when he filed for bankruptcy a second time. That year, he spoke to HuffPost about his problem, claiming that he was in no way living the high life and had always intended to resolve his tax issues. Sinbad told the outlet, "I spent money, and I kept thinking, I get one more movie and I'll wipe these bills out, but that movie never came." Later that year, the comedian told TMZ that he had been discharged from bankruptcy debt-free. As with most creative types, Sinbad's talents aren't limited to bringing the funny. According to Democrat and Chronicle, he also excels musically, specializing in drums, percussion, and guitar. Sinbad was also known for playing gigs in small clubs with his funk outfit, Memphis Red and the Stank Nasty Band.
People couldn't get past me being the band, so I said, let me create an alter ego. So my name is Memphis Red. He's a whole different cat.
Speaking with the Oklahoma Gazette in 2017, Sinbad revealed that he'd had a passion for music his entire life, but had let his musical inclinations slide during his comedic rise. He started funking it up again with his band in 2012 after a few years of sharpening his drumming skills and dabbling in just about any instrument he could get his hands on. During his more recent comedy club appearances, he'll bring along a DJ and a musician or two, often sitting in on bass or drums for a couple of numbers. Since he has made a name for himself by being a boundless well of energy, it's tough to imagine anything slowing Sinbad down. However, in 2020, it was reported that, at the age of 64, the comedian suffered a serious stroke, with very little additional information forthcoming. His fans held their collective breath, and as it turned out, they would be holding it for quite some time. No further info would be made public until 2022, when Sinbad's family took to social media with an update. It was revealed that following the stroke, the comic couldn't move his left side or lift his head, but that he had begun intense therapy in the months after, and at the time of the report, he was relearning how to walk. He had regained a great deal of mobility, was fighting for every inch, and had not forgotten about the fans who love him. Sinbad's family posted, "In his own words, I am not done. I will not stop fighting until I can walk across the stage again." It's a tough hand for anyone to deal with, but if there's anybody capable of dealing with such a serious scare with grace, determination, and humor, it's Sinbad.